Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody, and we are back from Nationals. Some of us, I think, probably flew in on Monday. Some of us flew back Sunday night. We are recording this on a Tuesday, so a little tired still from the weekend, but overall, pretty great weekend, I would say. We got our boy Dalton in the top 8, who then made it to the top 4. I was super excited to see him finally cash, but we here we're kind of losers on the group, unfortunately, and did not do as well as we would have liked to have done.
Yeah, I was first place for like a long time.
So,
In the top.
yeah. So, Dan, how was your nationals overall, and then your calling as well?
Yeah, it was a ride. It was quite the weekend. Nationals was just like a not my event kind of thing. Like I got in at midnight the night before. I kind of had to because of vacation days, but I just had a bad wasn't a great like mental state that day. It just like I was playing fine. I don't think I punted any games, but I wasn't in the I didn't have any like killer mentality or anything like that. I was kind of just like going through the motions and got some bad breaks in CC. I drafted a Enigma deck that couldn't win the mirror, and then I played Michael Fang in the mirror, and I went X3 and dropped. So that was fine. It was just like I wasn't feeling it. It wasn't my day. It was like normal tournament variance. That was all fine. I was pretty pumped to play the calling. I don't get to do that pretty often because I do usually make day 2. And I prefer just playing CC because I don't know. I don't have that much time to I enjoy playing multi-format, but I just don't have a ton of free time these days. And I tend to focus on CC because I don't know. That's what I do. And I love the deck that I'm playing. Like Zen is so much fun, and I feel like I'm back. Like my ninja's powerful again. I get to play like 10 cards in a turn like chain. It's just like, oh, this deck's so good for me. So I played the calling. Calling day 1 went fantastic. I finished in first place in 8-0 on day 1, not overall. Let me think. It was kind of a weird day still. Like I played terribly the first 2 rounds because I've like barely played this deck in person. I was like punting like 20 damage, and it didn't matter because the deck's like kind of really strong. And like I played really well to like not make any more mistakes. But then I think I played like perfect after like round 3. And I just kept winning. I won like a bunch of games where I was like way behind. Like I stole quite a few games that I had no business winning. So I had some like good variance that day. I had like every type of win. I had like the high roll where it's like 2 turns. Here's 100 damage. Sorry. And I had like average grindy game. Then just does that sometimes. So yeah, day 1 was great. 1 felt great. I felt good going into day 2. I was kind of like in like my prime like tournament mental, just trying to have fun and like play good games and learn as much as I can for Pro Tour coming up. I win the first round. I'm 9-0. Like this is great. It's like win the next one. I might be locked. Just got to win any 2, and then I lost 3 in a row, and variance kind of caught up with me. Like I definitely hit on some low percenters on day 1 to win those games, and then on day 2, I was like, I kept getting these like very winning positions, and I was like, all right, we just got to find the things. Like, okay, we didn't get it. That's okay. Next turn, we just got to find it. Oh, we didn't get it again. All right, one more chance. This ancestral just has to hit any combo card if we're fine. It's like, nope. Like, all right. So I had like 3 pretty tragic losses, which immediately knocked me out of the event, and then finished strong. Won the last round to lock up the top 16. I was like 11th or something. I don't know. Which like 11th is good, a great result out of like 600 players. That's fantastic. But when you start 9-0, it feels like you came in last place. So tough weekend, pretty good showing. I guess I'll close by talking about. This was like the first time that at least in a while, that I like led the team on a deck, which was the Zen deck. Like I was kind of on my own for a little bit. Well, Lucas and Shane got it started, right? They built this Zen deck. I was like about to lock in K. I was like, all right, let me just try this thing and see what they're talking about, because they said it's pretty good. And I tried it for like 2 games. I was like, wow, this is like my favorite deck of all time. Maybe like this is exactly what I want to do. So like we didn't know it was like the best deck at the time, but I was like, I'm just gonna ship this. Like there's so much potential here. We'll figure it out. And I kind of like led the way on the 9 bonds version that I ran, and Dalton ran in top 8, and a few of the others. And it was just really cool to see the team do well because we had Dalton top 8 with it, which was so sick to see. I love having a teammate to cheer on after I'm out of the event. And then we had Pat and Charles played it too, and they both made top 8 at the Battle Hardened. So like we almost top 8'd all 4 events, or all 3 events rather, with the deck. So that was cool to see. Just happy that I didn't let the team down because they picked it up not completely blind, but like I made some last minute changes. Like, yeah, we're just gonna play what you sub. And I was like, okay. I hope you're practiced on it, and they were. So that was cool.
Yeah, it was cool to see you leading the pack in the calling, and it was pretty heartbreaking to have to watch the day 2 there. We were like all
like
sure we were super
it was
locked.
like,
yeah,
I'm in such a good spot. Just got to draw the thing. I just didn't draw the thing. It's fine.
And Lucas,
opponents played well. Opponents were cool.
What had happened in your nationals run?
Yeah, I had a similar experience in nationals. I played Prism in nationals. Round 1, I paired against Bolton, which I think is one of the worst matchups. I think Bolton and Dash, for similar reasons of being aggressive decks that have a lot of poppers, those matchups are pretty hard to deal with. Especially also both of those decks having a lot of armor. And then I had a couple early turns where I had the Herald of Erudition plus Angelic Wrath combo that's really powerful and can get you ahead early, and you just had the popper both times, which that's what happens. That's how it goes. And then round 2, I lost to a Zen. He had 6 poppers and he drew them all within the first 4 or 5 turns. He actually played a few Weakest Links and Command and Conquers, and I couldn't block any of them. I just look at my hand and it's like Figment, Wrath, Arclight, and I'm like, you can have my arsenal, I guess. No blocks, dude. So stuff like that. But that's just kind of how it happens with Prism. To a degree, I kind of signed up for it. And then I won my next 2 rounds against some Assassins. And then my first round of draft, I thought my deck was broken. Although it turns out everybody's deck in my pod was broken. We had 9 Majestics opened. We had multiple 3 Majestic decks. I actually played against a deck with no Majestics. And then I got a little bit unlucky towards the end. I don't want to speculate on whether or not he did anything illegal against me, although I did hear that my opponent that I lost to in draft got a match loss the next round for playing 38 cards. So whether or not that is true, or if somebody just told me that, that's not for me to say, but I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. Just was waiting the whole game for a pick to pieces and didn't get them. They were the last 2 cards in my deck, but that's how draft goes sometimes. So I dropped out of Nationals after going X3, and then going into day 2, I picked up Azalea, which was a deck that I hadn't tested since before the Pro Tour in LA, but I was kind of just prismed out. Yeah, for the calling, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I picked up Azalea, which is one of my favorite decks. I love playing the deck. I played so much of it leading up to LA, so I felt comfortable, but I hadn't played it in a while. And then I went on a pretty good run. I lost to 2 Azalea Mirrors, which, if you've ever played the Azalea Mirror, yep. And then I lost to a Kano, who that matchup is close. And saying you got high rolled is usually, in my mind, a little bit like not productive. And I do think I learned some stuff from that game, but kind of got high rolled with the blind Kanos off the top. But that happens. I mean, that's just how Kano goes sometimes. They do have a lot of hits, so if you hit a bunch of Blazings and Lessons and Wildfires, you'll get there. And then I ended up going X3. I was X2 going into day 2, and then Brody ended up knocking me out in the second to last round in the Azalea Mirror. But just like Dan, I got top 16, so I was pretty happy with my finish, especially considering it was my losses felt mostly out of my control. And then I did also learn a lot, even from my wins, which I thought was pretty sweet. But I thought it was one of the most fun events I've played maybe ever, in terms of just like sitting down and having fun with my opponent. This event was a standout for me. Every single round, like, me and my opponent just chatting it up and giggling and laughing the whole time, and the people around us are laughing. I had one round where we had like 7 judge calls between me and the table to my left and right within like the first 3 minutes, and every time you see somebody raise their hand called judge, and it's just, oh my god, not another one. Like, come on. We had like 3 people forgot to DP, like, all in a row, and then we just, like, the first one, I forgot to DP, then I forgot to DP, and then I forgot to DP. We just thought the third person was joking. It was so silly.
I had the same thing, man. The vibes were so good in the calling.
Yeah, but like, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I had a blast. I was playing 2 different decks that I love. And then obviously, like we already talked about, we had some phenomenal finishes from the team. Dalton's a player that I know you guys are local to him, and you know he kind of shows up and kills a lot of these local events. And we know him on the team as a killer. He can do some really impressive things. He's a very strong player, and seeing him kind of get his first like big breakthrough finish was really sweet. You know, he's top 32 to a lot of these nationals. He top 32 to Worlds. You know, he has good finishes, but getting to see him like put in the spotlight where I think he belongs was really sweet. You know, I always love that moment, like after me or, you know, a teammate or a friend kind of locks in top 8 and you have that like emotional like moment. It was pretty sweet. I felt like I got to have that. I got to be the first one to like go up and see his face after he won and give him a big old hug. So those moments are kind of like what we do it for. And that's, I think, one of the best parts about, you know, being in a team or even just a group with your friends. So although my event it wasn't the best, it was a solid finish. I'm happy with top 16 in the calling, you know, got a little bit of money. It was, for me, just one of the most fun events. Like, it was a blast. A lot of the people in top 8 are my friends as well, you know, from other groups, and seeing them do well was pretty sweet. So I just, my biggest sentiment outside of just playing Flesh and Blood from this weekend is that I love Flesh and Blood and the people who play Flesh and Blood. And like, I can't say it enough. I think I made a tweet like halfway through day 2 or day 1 of the calling that was just, I love Flesh and Blood. And I feel like that kind of encapsulated my whole weekend of just like, this game is amazing. The people who play this game are amazing. And I couldn't ask for a better community.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun weekend. All of my games, even in like the nationals, was pretty relaxed for me and most of my opponents. I decided to be dumb and play Enigma, mainly because I just really like playing Enigma. It's like the first deck in a really long time that I found that I just really enjoy playing. The last deck was like Icelander, but it was kind of hit or miss with that. And then it was Prism, and then it was Chain. So it's been like a while since I've had a deck that I really enjoyed. I kind of felt like, one, Enigma was not a super good choice for nationals. You have to dodge Zen. Contrary to what other people like to say, that matchup isn't winnable. If you put a bunch of things in it, like a bunch of tech cards, you make the game feel close, but you do not cross the finish line against a good Zen. That's the issue with the Enigma Zen matchup. You put 15 cards in your sideboard to try and play into that matchup, and you have like a 20% chance to win at best. So it's just like not great. So I had to dodge Zen all day. Azalea is also pretty difficult, depending on their draw sequence. Like that game either feels easy or terrible, just depending on what like the top 20 cards are that Azalea gets. So those were my 2 hard ones. I was fine seeing anything else. I had the opposite of you guys. My day 1 was great. I ended up X1. I was super excited. My only loss was to an Azalea who just played like 5 Mercs in the first 7 rounds, and I was just like, and I got him close, but it was like whatever. You know, I did what I could, and sometimes that happens, so no big deal. And then my draft was great, 3-0 draft. I was feeling super confident going into day 2 for draft. The CC ones were not as confident because I have to dodge Zen, which is, you know, most of the field. But I go in, I sit down, and I have probably one of the hardest drafts I've ever had at a major. I have really good draft results overall at every major I've gone to almost. And I mean, my overall results weren't terrible, but it was a very hard to navigate draft. I ended up being that seat that has nothing get fed to them, where there's just no good signal on what you should play. Like day 1 was pretty easy. I saw that Enigma was picked by the guy next to me. He sent me a signal, I'm Enigma, and I said, okay. And then the guy like before him that was passing in said, I'm Ninja. And I said, okay, I guess I'm new. And it was like a 1 to 2 new. And I was like cycling every card around the table that I wanted. And it was like, I identified my spot. My spot was good. And I 3-0'd with new in day 1. It was no problem. And then day 2, same thing. I'm looking to see what my spot is. And it's nothing. Like I'm getting class cards. I'm getting all the class cards and they're all terrible. And it's just like, okay, let me try and wheel some stuff. Nothing that I wanted wheels. I'm just confused. I ended up drafting like the generic Nimbleism deck, which is like, okay, it's not like a terrible spot to be, but it was like the end of pack 2 and I have no class. Like I'm still not a class. It's the end of pack 2 and I'm just like looking, I have a bajillion generics and I'm just like, okay, I think I'm Zen. I mean, there's no Zen cards, but Zen just fits my cost curve of like 3 Nimble Strikes and 2 Nimbleisms and 2 for 6s and 3 for 7s. And I'm like, oh, let me just draft a couple 1 for 4s and like play the weapon. And then that's like good enough to play the game. And I have like 0 for 4s.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
even drafting Zen. You're just drafting Tiger, taming Kakara. And
Yeah,
like
Yep, and a couple of 1-for-4 go against. Like
Yeah.
that's like that was the whole deck, which is fine. The deck's actually very playable. I sit down, I win my first game. I was actually against Nathan, who ended up topping. And then my second game, the nimbleisms are at the bottom, and my nimble strikes are at the top, so they draw in the wrong order, and I just lose. It's like a Zen mirror. If they were the opposite, I win the game. And then the same thing happens in the third game, and I'm just like, well, I guess my tournament's over. Like legitimately, if I just drew the nimbleisms before the nimble strikes, I think I win both of those games personally, and because they were pretty close as far as Zen mirrors go. And then after that, it was just I'm just playing for cash. I hit a Zen, hit an Azalea. Things kind of went off the rails from there, but it was mainly just around the draft. I ended up drafting X2, which is I guess it's still good for a major event, but for the most part, I had a great time. I was just joking around with people. I mean, I remember I'm sitting down and I'm playing against an Azalea, and he's just like murking me over and over again. I'm not really that frustrated. I've played this match a million times. I'm just sitting there joking. I'm like, can you be nice to me for like one round? Like, can you stop? This is not fair. Like, and that type of interaction is always fun when both can joke around back and forth. But overall, I would say I had a great time. I'm happy I brought Enigma still. Because I got to play the deck. It's probably not a deck I'm going to have an opportunity to play at another big major. It's just it has too many weaknesses, and there's too many decks that can prey upon it to bring it. But it's a deck I really love. It's like my third favorite deck of all time. So getting to play that, because I've never taken that angle where I just play the deck I like at a major. Obviously Dalton doing well again is great. I think I've said this a bunch of times, but I was like, I don't know, like 14 at the time, and there was a game called Marvel vs. System. And Michael Dalton was basically the Michael Hamilton of that game. He was just topping every back-to-back Pro Tours, 10Ks, and he was just crushing it. And back then we didn't have live coverage that you could stream. That's not how it worked 20 years ago, or at this point. But I would watch the tournament coverage that they would type up, as like a 14-year-old, and I'd be reading, oh my, Michael Dalton topped again, and all these things. And then 20 years later, he's like, I'm on the same team with him. Like I ran into him at a random Flesh and Blood event. And I was like, hey, I was a huge fan of you when I was like 14. He got a kick out of that. So I was super pumped to see him do well at his have his first breakout event. So that was super cool. I also want to thank everyone who came up throughout the entire event and just said that they enjoyed the podcast or the content that we made. I had a lot of great conversations, with a lot of people, took a couple pictures. It was pretty fun. I always love to hear that, meet the people who are actually listening to the podcast out there, because kind of in our, own little world over here. So that was super cool as well. Anything else on, nationals?
I just also wanted
time at nationals.
I just want to echo that thank you to anyone who came up to me as well or said some nice things. It's been a while, but I had quite a few people at this event be like, hey, when I started playing, I really like Ninja, and I watched you play Fi against Michael Hamilton, and that's how I got started. And dude, we get so many props for that Fi video I did where I'm just in Tabletop Simulator. I'm like, there are 200 cards you could play in your Fi deck. You guys have to choose, but here's how I would utilize all of them.
I think I've seen that video like 4 times. I just watch it over and over and over again.
It was me just dumping all of my thoughts about every Fi card I've ever tried. It was just so nice to get that feedback, and that time, I guess 2 years ago now, wow, was just very special for me, trying to take down the Champleton and having some success and gaining that 5 following. I was just happy to be reminded of that. And then with that also came, there's a lot of Chris Iali fans that would come up, and every time his name or Briar is mentioned, I get a little sad because of that semifinals, but just fun to remember those times.
Yeah, I would have to say, for us, we did our tier list last week, and it kind of shaped out kind of what we were saying it was going to be. I think it was a pretty expected. I mean, Azalea was everywhere doing well, right? And Kano had 3 spots in the calling, and won the Battle Harden. We didn't expect it to win Pro Tour, but that's
I mean, our top 3 on the tier list won all 3 events, right?
Yeah, you just look up Achilles on Twitter, and you'll figure out why the Kanos weren't winning the Pro Tour or the Nationals.
A couple of Enigmas snuck in here and there, mainly because they dodged Zen. right? And then Prism got a top 8. Prism was around doing well.
Prism got a top 8 in both events.
Yep.
Also top 8 of the calling.
Yep. So yeah, KO second place, right up there.
Yeah, the only thing we kind of missed on was Zen was a little higher than our tier list had it, but I blame that on Dan. Cody and I had that on lock. We said easy S tier. All Dan's
I don't
fault
know,
that
man.
he was in A tier.
I was like debating if I want to walk that back. Like I think he's still A tier, but like I guess in terms of like preparing for like a big event, yes, he's the S tier deck now, right? He's the deck to beat. I still think the other two are there with him, like Kano and Azalea.
Yep.
I don't know, man. He's just not that good. Like he's got issues. His ceiling is obviously off the charts, insane, but it's just like I don't know. All of the games I lost this weekend were not against Zen. I went undefeated in the mirror and I played like 6 or 7 of them for what it's worth. And I lost 6 games on the weekend. So 6 other decks took me down. You can do it too.
Yeah, I think new is one of the reasons that Zen was running a little bit more wild. I think there was a decent amount of Zen new, but they kind of a lot of them were losing out on like day 1. So they weren't really there on the back end to do anything into day 2. But I still think that matchup is fine for Zen. Ultimately, Zen is physical damage Kano. Like you can do so much to him, and he can just kill you from any state for the most part. He can just draw a hand that kills you, and he can be at 1, and you can be at 40. So it feels very much if you let him. You have to like continually draw.
Yeah. Or like Kano, you can't like be like you get no action point. He's like no respond to no action point and kill you.
Yeah. It's a little different, but it feels pretty similar where you can be controlling the whole game and he gets one good turn and then the game's over. And so I think that's probably like the closest thing we have to like how his power works. But I mean, that's kind of where the meta's at. I mean, not unexpected. I do want to shout out a couple of people from the calling that did well. The overall winner, William Pistol, who also goes by Billy, is one of my locals who has been playing for a while and continually getting better and better and better. So I was not super surprised to see that he took down the calling. He's very strong on Azalea, and also his Levia is very good as well. So, and he was playing super well that weekend. So shout out to him. And then also another one of my locals, Zachary Miller, ended up topping the calling as well on Kano, and he switched from Dromai to Kano, and he's just been grinding that deck for like the last 3 or 4 months, and I've just seen like he starts winning locals, he starts winning locals, then he starts topping like Pro Tour RTNs, and then he starts, getting second place or winning one, and then now it's like a calling top 8. So it's been pretty cool to just see like the progress of people that are at my local doing better and better. So I wanted to shout them out real quick.
Yeah, I also had that experience. My local Reese was the Hatchet Bolton that was somehow doing well at Nats and was pretty close to top 8ing until Naib killed him.
Yeah, I almost had that experience. My local Peyton and I were both 8-0. The last 2 8-0s at day 1 at the calling. But we both finished X3, I think. It just fell short. But shout out to Peyton too. He's a good player. When he like moved to my area somewhat recently, and I was playing, I don't know what deck at the time, but I was like terrible at the Katsu matchup. He just like beat me up one game. I was like, can we play a couple? And he like, what I learned from him playing against him in those like 5 games is like my Katsu knowledge that I've used going forward. And I've been so much better in the matchup as a result. So wish he got there too, but we both failed sadly. Next time.
Okay. So with all that out of the way, what are your actual thoughts on how we expect the meta to shape out going through the rest of the national season, moving into Pro Tour? I think we've kind of established what the top decks are. Is Zen, I asked the easy question, is Zen here to stay all the way until Pro Tour? Or are some of these decks going to be able to hate him out a little bit? I saw some people had made a comment that this is like Starvo level a deck.
We'll get there later, with the podcast questions.
Yeah, so we will see. But what are your current actual thoughts after the tournament at Zen or at Zen and his place in the meta?
I actually think the Zen Starvo comparison is not completely unfounded. He kind of reminds me of Starvo, where there is a lot of tech that you can have for him. and the meta feels similar, where like there's only so many heroes you can like actually play. Like realistically, like I think there's probably like 3 or 4 heroes that you can play in the context of a meta where people know Zen is the best deck. I think US Nationals was probably the last event where you're like allowed to register something like Enigma. Because moving forward, if your deck isn't a deck that can play into Zen, just get out of town. I do think it's not quite as bad as something like Starvo, though, because there are a lot of counters to him, and naturally being an aggro deck, he has some consistency problems, and if you just play an aggressive deck into him and you just do the thing and he doesn't quite do the thing fast enough, you can win. I think he is relatively exploitable on a few axes. Obviously, he's not weak to disruption in that, like in the same way that Azalea is, where like disruption hits against him very often. Like he can usually effectively block it. He has a huge fridge that he can shove, but the disruption that's available in the game, if it does manage to hit, is really good, right? Weakest Link, Amnesia, Censor, Command and Conquer, these are all really strong cards if you can actually get them to hit, which some decks are better at getting them to hit than others, right? Things like KO can pump it up, things like Victor can pummel them. So there are ways to counteract him on that axis. He's also not a deck that blocks super consistently in the aggro matchups. Something like Dash.io maybe, or like Azalea can punish him for not being able to block on hits. But he is the boogeyman for a reason moving forward, right? I mean, he's the best deck in terms of representation. I bet a reasonable amount that he'll be the most represented deck in almost every Nationals. He'll probably win more Nationals than anybody else by a wide margin. He's going to be in the top 8s more than everybody else. He is the boogeyman. But I think he's one of the most exploitable boogeymen that we've seen in a while. Although I don't think it's necessarily just tech. I think a lot of it is some heroes have the tools to deal with them, and some heroes just don't. So I think it will be interesting the way that it shapes up. It's also, even though we have a boogeyman, it's still a relatively new meta, right? So there are a lot of heroes that, like, you know, things like Enigma, for example, was a hero that you could play at this event because people didn't know how good Zen was. But moving forward, maybe there are more heroes that you can only play because people know how good Zen is, right? There could be heroes that you think have a really good matchup into Zen, but maybe not a great matchup spread against the rest of the field. I know Cody talked about something like New, where you can potentially build a new deck that can be really good against Zen, but if it's a wide open meta, maybe you have a little bit more problems, right? You run into things like Enigma, things like Prism. Those can be pretty challenging matchups. But if Zen is the boogeyman, he's a lot more targetable, right? If Zen is the best deck at 25% of the field, it's really hard to take a deck that just targets Zen and is not very good against everything else. But if Zen's like 40% of the field, it's a lot easier to play a hater deck. So I think there are a lot of heroes, right, and classes, right? Assassin, Ranger, Mechanologist with cards like T-Bone that we could see target Zen. And we could have a more wide open meta by the time we get to Pro Tour. But for the next few weeks of Nationals, I would expect you're going to see a lot of the new Ninja Man. He's just going to be killing everybody.
Yeah, I agree with Lucas. I called it when I first tried the deck. I played like literal 3 games, and I messaged the team. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is going to work the entire meta.
That was
my
my
like 2 weeks
experience
ago.
as well,
yeah. It was like, it just doesn't take much. Like, this is absurd. Like, if this goes unchecked, this deck is by far the best in the game. It's already in check, like a little bit. I think Lucas described it well. Like the power gap between Zen and the next best deck is nowhere near Starvo. We're not talking that. Like it's probably the best deck. The issue is that only certain decks can beat this deck, right? So that's the meta. I think that's where he has the impact. Like you have to be able to put him on a certain clock or chain enough disruption that he just runs out of gas, which is pretty unlikely most of the time. You have to get damage in there as well. It has to be like a mix of disruption and shortening the clock. Because like once Zen has like 5 flip chi in his deck, like you're just dead. Like it's inevitable. Which I think is kind of cool. Yeah. Otherwise, I think Lucas summed it up really well.
So I will ask this because it doesn't happen. I also agree. I think Zen is arguably easily the best deck that we've seen in probably a while, actually. It's kind of targetable, but they gave him a whole fridge, so your first thing that you target him with doesn't do anything, which is a little weird. I mean,
it's a big cost though to block with the fridge.
Sure, but like if you already have that go hand, it doesn't matter. Like,
that's why I'm talking about the clock, right? Like there are requirements, right? You have to transcend. If you're blocking with the hat without transcending, like you're way behind.
Oh yeah. Obviously can't do that. You would just block with your hand because you're not go time if you don't have a transcend.
Sometimes you have to.
So, but I think it's pretty good. I think it's targetable, but I mean, we even saw we saw Evan, who ended up winning, and which is great. That he just took an amnesia on one of the turns. They're like amnesia, and he's just like, block boots, go to 1. Let's go. Amnesia didn't even do anything against his hand. So there's stuff like that sometimes happens, right? And I think we're pretty close now after this weekend on a really good Zen deck, but there's still a lot more to do, I think, to make Zen can get better from the spot that we've even seen him at. So I'm a little worried that way. It does stop a lot of decks from being able to play the game. So I'm curious, do you actually think for the first time in a while, like a very long time, we're going to see someone actually get over 25% representation at a tournament?
Yes. I think Zen's going to be... If Zen was 50% of Amsterdam, I would not be surprised. I don't think he'll quite be that much. I think
that's a wild take, and there's no shot.
I think it is a lot more likely he's 30-40%, but he is frustratingly from the side that's targeting him. He's also a pretty versatile deck sideboard wise. He has a lot of space, and a lot of the cards that people were playing this weekend in their sideboard were kind of making assumptions that they were actually good. People playing maybe 9 2-for-6s in the mirror, right? I saw a lot of people doing things like that, and that might just not be right. Disruption might not be the angle in the mirror, right? You might not need poppers for Prism. So even if there are decks that are figured out that can target Zen, he has a reasonable amount of play with his sideboard. He has a lot of space where he can kind of switch it up and adapt to the decks that are targeting him. And also, kind of like we've talked about so far, no matter how bad the matchup is, sometimes they just miss a turn, and then you're Zen, and then you block with your hat, and then 50. And it's there's not really a whole lot you can do in deck building around that. Obviously, that doesn't happen a lot, but it's kind of an extra draw to the deck where even if you have a truly bad matchup into a hero, which I think is pretty hard for Zen to actually have a bad matchup into a hero, you can just explode them with almost no setup. Obviously, that's not necessarily something you can do super consistently, but it does happen a lot of the time. And so I don't think he'll quite be 50%, but if he was, it wouldn't shock me. I think he'll definitely be more than 25%. I think he'll be probably 35 to 40%. Of the meta would be my guess. Probably erring slightly more on the lower end of that. But there's not really a number that's over 30 and less than 55 that would surprise me. No matter how the next few weeks shake up.
Dan, what do you think? Going in the Pro Tour.
I would be shocked if it's that high. I mean, you can't say the Pro Tour now. It's too far away. I don't think any nationals will have numbers like Lucas is saying. I think he'll be...
Yes,
maybe up to 20%.
I think the rule of thumb is real easy on this one. If you're trying to win nationals, not just play the deck you like I did when I went to my nationals. I was trying to win, but I was also trying to play a deck I liked. If you're actually trying to win nationals and you think your nationals will have 25% or less Zen at it, you should 100% just play Zen. 100% just lock it in and play Zen.
I don't fully agree. It depends on how you want to play it. Zen isn't a deck where you can just besides Enigma, you're not just winning when you sit down, right? It's not you have a fatigue strategy for this deck and every time you see them you're just going to win. You're just 60% to win, which yes, you should probably play that, but I don't know. That my experience with Zen has been that you're going to play the mirror, so it's anyone can win.
Well, that was my point. If it's 25% or less,
but I'm just talking the mirror. There's a bunch of
your
matchups
chances of
where
playing the mirror go down.
You're favored, but you're not just winning every game. Because he has warped the meta enough already that every deck in the meta, besides Enigma is here for some reason, every other deck is actually just they think they have a good Zen matchup, or it's close to a good Zen matchup, even though it's slightly unfavored.
You might think that, but that doesn't make them
everybody
right.
Thinks they have a good Zen matchup. That was the biggest takeaway from this weekend. Is every single person you talked to thought that they were good into Zen. I feel like everybody was 10 percentage points off.
It's
I guess I'm trying to say if you're 60% to win every round, you're not going to make top 8, right? On average. You're trying to find a deck that's 80%, so you're going to find the deck that targets Zen or I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not like I don't think it's so far better than these other decks that it's just like slam. I don't know.
I think you need to start playing other decks. Like,
I just think you should play Zen.
I don't want to play other decks. I want to play
exactly.
Zen.
You've been playing Zen so much that like he's through the when you start playing a deck, you're like, oh, this deck's really good. It's super good. And then as you play it more, you're like, oh, here's a bunch of weaknesses of the deck that I don't like very much. Then you get to like the bottom part, you're like, the deck's fine. But then you go play like one of the other decks that isn't that one, and you realize, oh, this deck's significantly better than everything else that I could be playing.
Dan's like
Yeah,
me,
I can buy
right?
that.
Dan's like me right before St. Louis with Lexi. Like Dan's like about to play a couple more events, and then he's gonna realize that Zen's the best deck, and it's like not even close. But like he's close. He'll get there.
I could just see the appeal of not wanting to play Zen.
Yeah, I'm just saying if you want to win and you think that it's going to be less than 25% of the people are going to be bringing Zen,
Sure.
I think you should.
I think
just bring Zen.
statistically, yes.
Yeah.
But you're putting a lot up to fate still.
I mean, you always are. It's a card game, right? Like,
Yeah, but you tell
Like-
yourself you're not.
I'm just saying that, like, I think a lot of these people, a lot of the people I talked to said they had a good Zen matchup, like a lot, like Lucas said. It's because Zen is tricky. He makes you feel like sometimes you're actually in the game, but you're never even close to in the game. Like, you'll play games and you'll be like, oh, Zen's at 4, and then they just like deal 30 damage.
You're like,
And-
oh, they high rolled me, and it's like,
and- yeah.
well,
Yeah.
Well, and then you like look over and they have 2 pieces of armor left, and you're like, this game's not even close. Like, it might feel like it was close, but it's not close. Like, it was never close. They were just buying time till they like broke their helmet. Like, it's just like not a big deal most of the time. You can make the health look close, but they're like, yeah, I'll take 10 damage here, and then their hand just deals 30, and you like die by negative 15, and you're like, that was a close game, and you're like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think even when you beat Zen, like, it might feel like it wasn't close, like you won by a lot, but they were probably like 85% to kill you, and they just whiffed.
dude,
Like,
I'm
that was
the
my
opposite.
experience this weekend.
Every Zen I played against that I beat, I was like convinced I was losing the whole game. I'm like, I'm only up 30 health, but they still have their hat. Like, how can I possibly ever win this game?
That's what I'm saying. Like, if they have their hat up and they've already transcended, you're like 80 to 90% to lose.
Like,
they just have
like
to draw the
I had
thing.
I had a game against one of my locals on Zen where I was like, here's drill shot for 8, and he is at like 10, and I'm at like 33, and I'm like, drill shot for 8, and I'm like, I think I've lost. Like, I threatened to put you to 2 of like 30 life. I'm like, I don't know how I win. And then he like hits me for like 30 damage and ends his chain with a CNC for 7. And it's like, well, only
There it
maybe
is.
I do die. Like, I ended up getting there, but it's like, it felt really bad. Like, I was convinced I was dead.
Yep, and that's and my other point is that I don't think we have the best version of the Zen deck yet.
I think there's a lot of ways to build Zen, and I think what's it called? The needles are great. I think that was good innovation. Makes a lot of sense for some matchups, but I think some of these builds are still far from optimized, including the one
Bad is the word you're looking for. Not far from optimized. They're bad.
Okay.
I wouldn't go that far.
I don't know. I think some of the builds are pretty shady, but we don't know. We don't know what the best way to play it is yet. We have a couple of theories. We have some ideas, but we don't know what it should look like into a meta that's ready for it and prepared and tested into the Zen. We don't know what Zen should look like in that meta, right? That can be a vastly different deck. I do have to say this. Riptide didn't show up anywhere. So all those people getting at me about Riptide not being B tier and get out of here. Riptide didn't show up anywhere. There was a ton of them too. I'll tell you this.
There was 2 that 4-0'd day 1, and there was one player that was like, my local knocked him out. I think he went like X4, X5 in the calling. I think X5.
Yeah.
But
I know where
that's
they were.
pretty-
They were
I
at the
guess
bottom of the
that's not-
calling.
yeah,
I
guess
just
that's
want to
pretty
point that out. Everyone talking about how good Riptide is. Riptide didn't show up anywhere in any of the 3 events he could have shown up in. He just was at the bottom tables where he normally is because his matchups weren't as good against people who were practiced. Just throwing it out there. So get at me. Anyone else have anything aggressive they want to say or anything talk about it? Zen a little bit more?
No, that's what Twitter's for.
Yeah, I definitely have something, but I'm too tired, man.
Too tired.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am excited to see where this meta goes. It's kind of fun for us. Like, we had our nationals, and we like here is what was our nationals, and now we get to kick back like every weekend and just be like, what's happening across the rest of the world? Like,
Yeah, we get to see what the UK brings us for the Fab meme situation this year.
I don't know. Ours was we had a pretty bad one this year. So
We did, yeah.
on stream.
Yeah, but it was at least like handled like a proper person would handle that situation.
So I'm excited to see what they do. Obviously, we're already testing for Pro Tour because there's like no time. So
Dude, Nationals was testing for Pro Tour. That's all it was.
Oh yeah, 100%.
What do we got? 5 weeks, something like that.
Five till we leave. That's
I
it.
have
5
4
till we
because I
leave.
leave a week early.
Oof. So yeah, already getting your Pro Tour test again. That's basically starts this week. There's no break this time. Getting right into it. But okay, let's go over to some podcast questions. These podcast questions are asked by members of our premium Discord. If you'd like to join the Discord, just see the link below. You can ask questions on the podcast. You can find people to practice with for your Pro Tour, your Nationals that you have coming up. Ask the team various questions, get insights, etc., etc. And videos that we post. So first question here, and I think let's start with Millen, and it says thoughts regarding U.S. Nationals. Also, what are your feelings regarding the new set with the Rune Blade and the other fatigue decks coming out? So I think we covered most of our thoughts regarding Nationals already, but I did want to mention this for, what do you think of the cards they spoiled?
I'm hyped. They're awesome. They're all so cool.
Dude, I don't care at all. I'm just gonna play Zed.
Dude, we were I think we were all together. We were at the hibachi place when we actually like saw them. And like my first reaction to one of the cards is, I think this is like the best card in the game now. It's the 3 for 4. If you have 4 or more Earth cards in your banish zone, it gets +4. And then Decompose, you banish 3 things from your graveyard, and your opponent puts a card from their hand on the bottom of the deck. That card's crazy. And if we see more cards like that, I think it's going to be a super sweet set. I also know like Lightning Wizard sounds awesome. Earth Wizard sounds awesome. The new Lightning Rune Blade looks dope. You're going to do so many go-agains. Like, the new channel, the Lightning one is insane. The channel Earth card is sweet. The specializations are sweet. Like, I don't know. This set looks awesome. I'm so excited for Rosetta. Like,
I have zero thoughts.
Oh,
yeah, I wasn't joking. I really don't care at all.
I really don't care at all. I have Pro Tour
forever.
Yeah, I don't care because it's after Pro Tour. Like, so it just like there's not enough space in my brain for that set to exist yet. I'll be hyped after Pro Tour's over, but I can't be hyped before. There's no room.
My brain is young. It hasn't molded away yet. Correct. So I still get to be excited for new stuff. So for all of you players out there who aren't, old heads with no soul, this new set's going to be awesome, and you guys are allowed to be excited about it before Amsterdam. And then at Amsterdam, we're going to get the new hero reveals, and it's going to be sweet.
I just hope that gets an expansion slot.
15 years of junk being added to your brain, and you'll be like, okay, I need to save space here.
Yeah, right now I'm chilling. I got nothing going on.
You got lots of space. Okay. Next question from Kraft is, what were the big surprises of the weekend in terms of heroes or deck building strategies?
I think the biggest surprise for me was Enigma doing so well. Obviously, part of that was a lot of them dodging Zen, or I know in one of the
format too, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty open format. I was a pretty hard non.
No, I meant the draft and CC.
Oh, sure.
Did they show up at the calling? I didn't see if any made it.
No, there was no.
You can't play it in the calling.
No. But even still doing well at Nats, that kind of surprised me. That was really it for me. Otherwise, everything was pretty much what we expected. Obviously, like Cody said earlier, our tier list was pretty accurate. So there was nothing really that surprised me for the most part. I mean, Dan not top 8ing the calling after being 9-0 was pretty shocking. But
that was
same. Agreed.
That was very shocking.
Yeah, but other than that, not really.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was hoping to be surprised, but this was pretty much what we expected.
Meta-wise, the needles were smart.
I was personally
I think we would have found them
by
eventually,
the
but we didn't have. Yeah, there was just no time. Like, I locked in Zen with 2 weeks. I was like, I just can't deviate. Like, I'm just playing bonds and gonna.
That's all I know.
This curve that I have here. Yeah,
Dude,
I didn't work on the deck, so
yeah. Every message Dan sends to the Discord about Zen is like, I'm still playing 9 bonds, but this thing is changing. And it's like next message is like, I'm still on 9 bonds, but this other thing is changing.
Everyone else is like, nah, bonds are bad. We're like, okay.
But yeah, I mean,
No, that was really smart.
Yeah.
Everything else, I didn't see anything surprising really. I didn't see much spice.
Nope. Oh, Dash. No. Actually, that was a surprise for me. There was a lot of Dashes doing well at the top tables of the calling. I think we kind of talked about this in our tier list video where it has a reasonable matchup spread, but it's like not maybe the strongest deck. And I think we kind of saw that.
For calling too, though. Like it's just like the skill difference a little bit. Like it's a very linear deck, right? Like it's gonna output this damage. It's like 5, right?
Yeah.
Like every turn, it's gonna deal slightly like 1 point above rate damage or 2 points, and that has one big turn. So if you're not playing efficient on the other side, you just kind of you lose in a couple turns, right? You're on a clock.
Mm-hmm.
It does put a clock on Zen. Like I lost a Dash game because my deck just like refused to cooperate. Like I can't block my way out of it. They're putting too much damage on me.
Yeah.
I had like 5 turns to draw any bonds, any transcend, any descendant, and I just didn't. So I just kind of sat there and blocked a bunch and I lost. That makes sense to me.
Cool. Hopefully we get some surprises in the other nationals. We see, something spicy come out.
I think we will.
It feels like there's something out there that's good.
There's a couple of heroes. Yeah.
I always walk by my stack of commons and stuff that I have on this table that's off on the side of my room over here, and I'll just glance a random card and I'll just be like, oh, there's so many cards in this game. How is it also better than what we have? That we've found.
This is what you're missing.
Thunk? No.
Yellow Thunk.
No, the card I continually look at to see why is this card not good yet is look at the top of your deck and look at 3 cards and put one on top and then show it if you have dealt less damage than that.
Oh, even bigger than that?
Even bigger. Yeah. I stare at that card every other day, I swear. I walk by, there's one sitting on my desk, and I'm like, why aren't you good yet? You should be good.
Dude,
people don't even block. Why aren't you good? So I'm hoping someone cracks something spicy and smashes the nationals with it. That would be pretty cool. Okay. Next question from Rinzo. It says, Dalton says that Zen is near Starvo level. How can we hold him back? What decks or strategies or cards help us versus Zen? I think that's the $1 million question, right? If you crack that, what do you win a tournament?
Yeah. I mean, the answer is Siren's Call. Just put 10 of those in your deck.
Yeah. I mean, we already kind of talked about it a little bit, right? There are some classes that can target it. Guardian, Assassin, potentially Mechanologist. I mean, whether or not you think any of those are actually good is up to you, but those are the heroes that seem like they have, or those are the classes that seem like they have the best tools. Maybe Prism, if you can figure something out there.
I would put Ranger and Wizard too.
Or Ranger, yes. Wizard,
yep.
Sure.
They're at least completely reasonable.
Yes.
To play in a Zen meta.
Yeah.
The question is just, can you continually stop them from doing their thing? And then what do you do? The hard part is... the hard part is if you could stop them from continually doing their thing while also not just taking a bunch of damage, it would be great. But a lot of the time you stop them kind of, and then they have a 2-card hand, and their 2-card hand's good enough to push damage, and you just are just trading the same amount of damage. So then when you miss on your control, they just oh, you're at 20 with me. You die now.
Well, the Zen can also dish out Disruption too. That's where it gets awkward.
Yeah.
CNC against Azalea is pretty good.
Agreed. I don't know. I think it's exciting where we're going. There's a big power up for the deck. I think Enigma is not as good as people think it is. And you should probably not bring Enigma if you want to win, but Enigma will win some nationals. There will be some nationals. I'm sure Enigma will win a nationals or 2. But I'm a little worried about Refined Zen and see where that gets. So I think, we'll be finding out. Do you guys actually think there's any possibility we get any changes before Pro Tour?
0.
Really?
Ban restricting?
I think it's sub 0%. I think the developers are happy with Zen.
I don't know if they're happy with it. They might be, but I think they'll, if anything happens, it'll probably be post Pro Tour, right? They'll use
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be
well,
pretty
there's,
upset if
there's
it was
just
before.
there's just like not a time where it makes sense for them to hit it, right? Because
It has to be like today.
yeah, exactly. Because like they're not going to hit it during national season. They're not going to hit it 2 weeks before Amsterdam. They're not going to hit it right before a new set comes out, and then like right after the set comes out, it's Worlds. So like maybe with the release of the new set, if they don't believe in the new heroes, they'll hit it. But even then, that's kind of suspicious, I would think.
Yeah, I think they have like today or tomorrow, and then it's unreasonable past that.
Especially because we've already seen disruption be one of the potential themes of the new set, or like life gain. It feels like the new heroes might have play into Zen to a degree, so it feels like probably there's no reason for a hit anytime this year.
I don't know. I think at some point they should ban bonds. Not now. At some point in the future. It's not or restricted to only red. You can only run red bonds, and then I think it's balanced.
Yeah, but that's like our whole
terrible.
game plan. Our whole game plan is like play like 12.
Don't kill my ninja, man. You gotta unban Belittle if you do that.
Yeah, give me green.
Yeah. I think if bonds was just printed as majestic, I think it'd be a little nicer. It's just that it doesn't have to hit to get its effect, so it's pretty busted. Or its middle part didn't have go again. Then it would not be nearly as good. But for right now, I think it's fine. No, I think it's fine for now. I'm just talking future stuff. I think having bonds around indefinitely is probably at some point going to end up being an issue. Card is
Only
great.
if they keep making combo based ninjas, but we can.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll find
Can
out.
we get get rid of Codex too then?
Does anyone know what nationals this weekend is?
UK.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I'll be watching.
Should be a bunch,
That'd be
right?
great.
I don't know. I just want to watch UK because I want to see like what horrendous meme happens, and then I'll watch like whatever other interesting ones there are. I'll probably watch Spain. I like Spain. And then Germany, I think, has a lot of really strong players, so I'd be looking over there. Right, recently Max Klein was kind of going on a tear, so I think a lot of the European ones I'll be interested in, and then also I think APAC has yet to kind of burst onto the scene, like in the numbers that we would expect, but there are some actually unreal players over in the APAC region, so I'd be looking over there.
Sounds good. Well, with all that said, I think we're going to get out of here. Again, thanks for everyone who came and said hi at Nationals. Good luck in everyone in your Nationals this weekend. You should probably be playing Zen. If you're not playing Zen, good luck at your Nationals because you're going to need it. So goodbye, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope here,
7
but
envelope
What we could do
in
here is go
darkness.
ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of Envelope and Darkness.